Welcome to this week's edition of VLGA Connect, brought to you by Hunt and Hunt Lawyers. Each week, we bring to you the latest news, insights, and interviews on issues of importance and interest to the local government sector, not only in Victoria but nationally and across the globe. My name is Catherine Arndt and I'm the CEO of the VLGA, and it's great to be back with you again this week while Chris Eddy is on some leave. Today on the program, Chris sits down with the Mayor of West Wimmera, Shire, Councillor Tim Meyer, to talk about how he is finding his mayoral term. Mary Agostino, Chief Executive Officer of Mitchell Shire, also joins us to talk about what's happening in her community and the key issues Council is addressing.
Well, on the show, we do like to catch up with some of the civic leaders around the state. And another first this week, we're heading out to West Wimmera Shire to meet the Mayor, Tim Meyer, who joins me now. Hello, Tim. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Chris. Good to be with you.
Great to have you here, and congratulations on your third term as Mayor. In fact, pretty much the last half of the last term and the start of this term, you've been in the mayoral chair, correct?
That is correct, yes. Yeah, it's quite a long stint, actually. We generally sort of swap it over every year, but I've sort of landed it for a few years in a row now.
I had a look at the history of the mayoralty at West Wimmera, and of course, the Mayor name appears regularly. Your father, Bruce, was mayor for 9 times, I believe. Didn't quite crack the 10.
No, that's correct. He 29 years. He was just short on 30 years. If we never had that period of amalgamations and commissioners, he would have got to 30 years. So he was quite a long time in the job.
Indeed. And of course, he must have first been in local government and serving as mayor when you were just a little tacker, Tim. Would that be right? You were observing his local government public service?
Oh, well, I was still in high school when he started. It's quite funny when he actually first ran, and he had to get his arm twisted by the community like you do in these sort of jobs. He took it on. He really proud of all his achievements there. And then when sort of people started twisting my arm, he sort of said, no, 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 you're too young. You're too young to do it. But I was the exact same age he was when he started. So, yeah.
Yes. So do as I say, not as I do, or the other way around,
right.
perhaps. Perhaps in this case, Tim. But were you looking at what your father was doing and achieving and thinking, yes, that's definitely a path I want to go down at some stage?
Quite the opposite. I had to get my arm twisted fairly hard to actually put my hand up in the first place. It was one of those things where we actually had somebody else lined up to do it, and they sort of pulled out in the last minute, and yeah, I sort of drew the short straw. But I don't regret it. It's something I do enjoy, and I am quite passionate about it.
So it's good to hear that you don't regret it. But why do you think that reluctance was there in the first place?
Oh, look, I just know the impact it actually has on you, especially living in a small community. You rarely get away from it. It's something that you have to sort of deal with in all situations, everywhere you go. Somebody always wants to have a talk to you about a council matter and things like that. And it has quite an impact on your own business. I know, we run a farm, a family farm, and you're away from the farm more often than you're actually doing your work, and it's quite a challenge.
Yeah. So I want to talk about a few of the current issues. I just want to apologise to the viewers too. The internet out there in West Wimmera is not behaving as we would like it today. Is that a common issue for you, telecommunications and the standard of service that your community receives?
Oh, look, if this was in Melbourne, people wouldn't put up with it, that's for sure. We are covered in black spots right across the entire Shire. It really makes it quite challenging. If you want to these days, it's pretty hard to run a business without good internet, and we really struggle with it. We have been fortunate. A couple of our major towns have had optic fibre laid out with NBN recently, which has improved things.
Right.
But for the rest of us, yeah, it's still a battle.
Yeah, and advocacy is a strong requirement of anyone in a role like yours, particularly in rural areas, as you fight to get the sort of level of service that others, I guess, take for granted. And one of those issues you've been advocating on pretty strongly recently is the state government's ESVF levy. Your council has taken a pretty strong stand in opposition to this, hasn't it?
Oh, we came out very early on it. We absolutely strongly oppose this. And the fact is, I've never seen my community so angry about a single issue ever before. This
Right.
is getting people out of the woodwork. They are ready to really fight as hard as they can on this issue. It's possibly the dumbest thing I've ever seen a government do, just to lay something like this on the volunteers and the people who are actually, really looking after their own community and making them pay for it to such an extreme level. It's really hard to comprehend this one.
So, many other councils have said similar things. They're taking steps to make sure that it's very clear on rate notices that if councils are required to collect this, it's been collected on behalf of the state. Do you think that level of understanding or awareness is getting through to communities, that they know why and how this is being imposed?
I think people understand that part of it now. I think people are very clear that it's not the council's decision, and I think when they see it on their rate notice, they'll know that we're not responsible for it. The only problem is there's a really loud call in our community that council just refuses to accept that we just don't take the payments and we won't pass the payments on. And that's the part that we're finding really challenging because we know we can't do that. We just have no legal grounds whatsoever to just say no, we're not going to take the money. And that's what the community is actually asking of us, and that's where the real anger is starting to really grow now too.
Yeah. So, some mayors, particularly Steve Jolly in the city of Yarra, are leading a charge to find some other legal options here. But it does seem that there's not too much option that councils have with regard to this. Is that your understanding?
That's all the legal advice we've been giving as well, and it just shows. I know I met a few councillors from Marybeck when I was up in Canberra and Yarra City. Well, you wouldn't think those guys and West Wimmera would have a lot in common, but this is one issue that really unites us all. So
Yes.
that's really encouraging to see, I think.
So, Tim, tell us a bit about West Wimmera, the type of community that you have and the particular issues that you're faced with out there at the moment.
Yeah, we are geographically a very large area. We're about 9,000 square kilometres. We're the second largest shire in the state. We're also the second smallest population. We only have 4,000 residents. So we have a 2,700 kilometre road network, I think it is, which is the equivalent of driving from here to Perth that we have to maintain. And we have a very low rate but base to sort of do that work with. We're predominantly an agricultural region. We have very few industries established here. Our largest employer is actually the council in the Shire,
Mm.
with the health services and the schools also being major employers. But otherwise, we are pretty much a predominantly agricultural area.
Yeah, so that puts lots of pressure on your budget. As you say, you don't have a great rate base, and it's really important, obviously, that state and federal government support is coming to municipalities like yours. How do you balance, I guess, that need to maintain the relationship with other levels of government while they do things like the ESV levy that you've got to take a pretty strong stand on?
Oh, look, the honest truth is you often just feel like you're completely ignored and neglected anyway. So you can try and be friends, or you can try and, let them know you're unhappy about things. There's no easy way around it because, look, I like to tell people just how ignored we often are. The last time we saw a Labor government minister up here was Joan Kerner when she was the education minister in
Wow.
1988.
Wow.
So we've had, pretty large natural disasters, fires, floods. We've had, the border closures was a major issue here, and nobody ever came to see us. Nobody ever took any interest in us. So it's a real challenge. And you can probably say, well, that's my fault. They don't like me or something like that. But we try. We invite them up here. We want to have good relationships, but it's just not working. So that's a real challenge.
That must be quite demoralizing for you at times.
Oh, look, it is. It is. Look, we don't have a bad place. Look, it's a great place to live. We don't go without too many things, but there are a lot of areas where we do need help, and it's just not forthcoming.
Your community must think you're doing an okay job, but though, Tim, I noticed that your latest community satisfaction survey results are again above the state average. You must be pleased with that outcome.
Yeah, yeah, they were encouraging results. And again, there's a few areas we're still got to work on, and we're happy to try and work, to improve areas. Or we always want to try and do the best we can. The main thing is we always put a focus on our roads, and we know when it comes to these surveys, people always sort of judge you on your road network. That's quite common in country areas, and
Yeah.
so we always put a big emphasis on our road network, and we actually, if you actually look at the results, we actually got marked down on a lot of our roads. And when you looked into it, it was actually the state government roads in their poor state that was reflecting badly on council, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's not an uncommon story, is it? People don't drive along a road and think about who actually owns it. They're just thinking about the experience that they're having.
No, that's dead right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously most people's first thought is it must be the council. You said you were in Canberra recently for the National General Assembly. Um, how do you find that as an exercise for advocacy and for building relationships? Is it still a valuable exercise to undertake?
Oh, look, it's definitely a great networking opportunity. And like I said, like there wouldn't be too many times where I'd be in a room just having dinner with the councillors from Marybeck, for example, and you just don't
Yeah,
cross paths normally. But you get to know one another and learn you do have things in common, and it's really valuable for that reason. The actual, well, this year was a bad example when it wasn't a sitting week, but it's, you don't get that have the access to the ministers and their staff and all that sort of thing very often. And unfortunately, this year it didn't really pan out that way. But you do take the opportunity while you're up there to try and meet as many people in that space as you can, and have your little two-pager sort of thing saying this is what we want, our little
yeah.
wish list, and you try your hardest. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, in my experience, when it is a sitting week, it can be very, very hard to get some time with ministers because 530 something councils have got reps there all trying to do the same thing.
No, no, no. And we've already discussed it here in our little regional area that we'll probably try and do our own trips at some stage now, either to Spring Street or to Canberra, to do these sort of work separately. I think it'll be more beneficial that way.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, Tim, you made some public statements recently in support of your CEO, David Bazudenhout. Am I saying that right?
You got that one right?
I
Yes.
got that one right. I've been getting your name wrong, but I've got that one right. Now, there'd been some pretty ugly graffiti attacks, I understand, and some stuff that seems to be related to an enterprise bargaining process from what I've read in the press. It's not common to see mayors come out with such strong public statements in support of their CEO. Why did you feel the need to do that?
Oh, look, we noticed a lot of the attacks were getting quite personal, and we just didn't think that was at all acceptable. And I think there was a real, a lot of questions been asked in the community, people asking us, is this true and is that true? And there was just a lot of misinformation getting around. And so we just thought, well, it's time to sort of just, put out a strong message and let everyone know, we support our CEO. We know he's doing the right thing here. And we don't stand for a lot of this nonsense that's going on, especially when, the Shire officers were getting graffitied and things like that. That was just
Yeah.
completely unacceptable. And the community were outraged by it. They couldn't believe it. So yeah, something had to be done. Something had to be said.
Yeah, well done for taking a stand on that. And as we often talk about on this program, that whole issue of civility or lack of it's bubbling its way to the surface in many communities. It's a bit of a phenomenon that we really want to try and get on top of. So sad to see that it's happening out in areas like yours as well as in the cities.
No, no, and that's the really disappointing thing. And like I said, we as councillors, we're always very accessible. People can always, they know where we live. They can come and see us. If we go to the supermarket, everyone wants to have a chat with you. So it's, we expect that sort of civility, and we do get it really most of the time. It's just, yeah, it's just this one occasion where it's just got completely out of hand, and we had to do something.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for clarifying that. I think your EB process is still ongoing. You've not got to the end of that as yet. Am I right?
No, that is still ongoing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No need to say any more about that. The other thing I was noticing recently is that you're exploring options to transition your maternal and child health services. Again, one of these issues that councils grapple with: what services can they afford to keep providing directly? Is this a case of you need to look at more efficient ways to get these services delivered in your community?
The whole process was actually driven from another reason, and that was the aged care services. And council took the decision earlier to, like a couple of months back before that, to step out of that space,
Yeah.
which again, personally, was something I didn't support, but the council has taken that direction now. And that's been driven by the changes in the Commonwealth legislation. And it made it extremely difficult for local government to stay continuing what we were doing. It was going to come with a whole heap of elevated risks in terms of clinical governments and things like that. And we just don't have the experience and the staff to be able to provide that. So it would have cost us a lot to stay in, and we would have had to make a lot of changes. So as part of the process of stepping out of that, we've also then said, well, how does MCH line up? And also, how does our early learning line up? And so we haven't quite got to the decision yet. The meeting is on Wednesday, tomorrow,
Right.
where we'll make that decision. But at this stage, council doesn't have a position one way or the other. Even I'm still sitting on the fence about it because there are a lot of risks to continue in that area. It's continually, legislation keeps on changing, and you do have to have more and more skills to be able to provide that service. And again, those skills are lacking in rural areas, unfortunately. And you've got to weigh all that up with, well, if we do step out of that, is somebody else going to be as reliable and trustworthy to run the service? And that's what our local community is really concerned about. So we've got to weigh all that up. We've tried to be open and honest with our community to tell everyone that we are looking at this, and that's caused a bit of a backlash because they've seen that as a foregone conclusion.
Right.
But I don't see it that way. I see it more as, well, we want to hear from you, and the amount of feedback we've received has actually been really helpful for us to actually help make a decision too. So that's been a positive.
Okay, that is positive indeed. And as you say, you're about to reach a decision on that. So we'll wait to see what transpires there. The other thing that's occurred to me while you were saying that, Tim, is I've seen some of your neighbours talk about the childcare desert out there in that part of the state. That would be an issue for you as well, I assume.
Oh, childcare is one of the biggest problems that we actually face out here. It's one of the biggest challenges we have in the whole area. We had a complete market failure in one of our towns where we did have a not-for-profit running the childcare service. Councils had to step in and get that running, and so we actually run our own childcare service in that town. It's one of the things I'm most proud of that on my time on council. But at the same time, it has been an enormous challenge. We just are very short-staffed. If a single staff member gets sick, we have to close down the whole centre. It's just a real challenge, and it really impacts people that we can't provide the reliable service that we want. We still have another town in our Shire that doesn't have any service whatsoever. And because we struggle to keep this one service open, we haven't been able to make that decision yet to actually open up a second service. And that's something that we know we need. We just don't know how we can go about doing it just yet.
Yeah, these are really difficult problems, aren't they? And they must keep you awake at night. But I just want to congratulate you on continuing to put your name forward and show the leadership that's required here in a challenging small community like yours. Tough decisions around the corner all the time. It must feel.
Oh yeah. Well, it was all just ribbon cutting and opening up sporting events like that. It'd be fun, I know, but you do have to make these tough decisions, and you do have to be out there fighting as hard as you can. That's for sure.
Indeed. Tim, it's been great to talk to you and find out a bit more about what's happening in West Wimmera, and we wish you well with your endeavours there to improve those various issues for the community of West Wimmera Shire. Well done.
No, thank you, Chris.
Tim Meyer, the Mayor of West Wimmera Shire, with us on VLGA Connect. Joining me on the program today, I'm very pleased to have the CEO of Mitchell Shire Council in Victoria, Mary Agostino. Mary, lovely to see you.
Good to see you again, Chris. It's nice to be here.
Good to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, can I say congratulations on your appointment as CEO? I know it's going back to April, but a few months under the belt. How's it all going for you?
Yeah, it's going great. I've got a very energetic council who keep me on my toes. We've done our draft council plan. We've done all the legislative requirements. So I'm feeling really good about that, and a council plan that really reflects our councillors and community views. And an organisation that's pretty strong and adaptive at the moment, because they
Excellent.
have to be. So
yes, indeed.
I'm feeling good.
You don't have a lot of choice on that front.
No,
do
you don't.
In today's environment. You were interim before you were appointed CEO, and it's not the first time you've had the interim CEO hat on somewhere. I think it was a long-held ambition, was it not, to get to the position on a permanent basis?
Yes, it was. I did the acting CEO for a year and a half and then didn't get the role. And that's a strength. you find an inner strength around that and how you move on from that. And so I didn't lose that ambition and goal to hopefully lead Mitchell Shire. And then, you know, I remember hearing the words, "You got the job this time," and I couldn't have been more pleased that the councillors selected me, and I'm sure they had a lot of good people to select from. So I feel very grateful I'm in the role.
I want to talk about some current Mitchell issues, but just on that point, when you've been in an acting role for a year and a half, as you say, and then you don't get the job, what does that do for your aspirations, your self-esteem? What did you take away from that experience?
Okay, so that's a great question, because it does devastate you for a few weeks. Like, you've really got to look at the why of what happened, and then you've got to really pull up your socks and go, well, you know what? Whatever this is a learning experience. So pick up your socks, do your best in the role you're in. If you're not happy and you're not aligned with the values of the organisation, which I still was, about what we needed to achieve there. So I had a real purpose. And I remember saying to Brett, I'm not leaving for another director role. And that was challenged in my head every now and then. But I was very lucky in having Brett land there and being a decent person. And so I could work with him.
Good on
if
you.
that makes sense.
It sure does. It sure does.
Do not, I look at interim CEOs being appointed at the moment, and I reached out to one who I thought might be ambitious to say, hey, if you need to talk to me about the path, please reach out. But because I know how it can feel at the end of that path if you've been acting for that long and not get the job.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to do. As you say, there are lots of interims at the moment, quite a bit of change around the sector. Let's talk more about Mitchell issues now that you're in the CEO position on an ongoing basis. What are the things that are going on at the moment that are keeping you potentially awake at night?
There's a few things with Mitchell. Mitchell Shire's, I know we've got a lot of growth corridors across the state, so I'm not negating any of that. But Mitchell Shire's at the growth point of the most pain that you can think of.
Yeah.
And I know we're all under financial pressure, but right now we've got 20 new hubs we need to deliver. We've got 30 new sporting facilities. That's just at a high level what we need to deliver. So we've got a growth at the southern front, a rural sector in a rate capped environment. And I remember when I was working at Whittlesea pre-rate capping, we'd always CPI plus 1% to try and increase that revenue, that rate revenue, as a compounding formula. Here, you can't rely on that rates revenue. You've got a huge renewal gap, then you've got a huge new delivery arm, then you've got what's shrinking. We had growing suburbs fund of 50 million that we could tap into to support some of the new infrastructure. That's gone. GAIC is, I don't know what GAIC is at the moment. We've put in applications as a sector. They're funding state infrastructure out of that. So I go, we're squeezed from a number of areas. We haven't got a cumulative budget sitting. The reserves, I know when the community looks at the reserves, they go, oh, there's, 90 million, sitting in there. But that is all attributed to some sort of delivery in that growth area. So there's this push-pull, rural growth, urban, an evolving urban environment. And then you've got, state government and a federal government who haven't got a lot of money at the moment, and there's not a lot of money around that you can tap into. And I was at the conference a month ago with the mayor in Canberra, and I just remember, some of the comments from what the whole sector across Australia, and particularly the growth areas we met as a sector. Some of the very similar challenges to Mitchell, but I think we're on steroids at the moment on those challenges.
Just give us some context in terms of what sort of growth are you experiencing and expected to experience?
Annually, we're experiencing 6.18% of growth. So at the moment, we're at 64,000. Over the next 20 years, that will triple. So our growth front is, and it's a tiny little part of our municipality. So if you ever look at us on a map, there's 2,600 square kilometres. but it's concentrated. And we've got Kilmore, which is growing from 12,000 to 25. We have pockets of growth in our Shire. So if you think of the southern part, that's where the concentration of growth. And then we've got other pockets such as Kilmore, which is also growing from 12,000 people to 25,000 people.
Yeah.
So we've got some of our towns are actually growing as well. We've got some of the challenges up the highway into Seymour, where we've got some real disadvantage. That disadvantage is also now in Wallen, and we have a lack of services. If you need a service in Mitchell Shire, a health type, mental health type service, really you have to travel to Shepparton or Craigieburn or Thomastown for those services. So we've got a lack of services in the Shire supporting our growth.
So I do recall the discussion around COVID time with municipalities like Mitchell. Are they metro? Are they rural? Because you really do straddle that fringe interface sort of definition, don't you? And what does the average Mitchell person think? Oh, I guess it depends on which part of the Shire they live in.
Chris, we don't have an identity crisis. I call them the two beautiful bookends of Seymour and Beveridge, and they both offer something really different. So we don't have an identity crisis, but when it comes to a crisis at a state or federal level, they have an identity crisis around Mitchell. So we just rolled with the punches then. It was metro councils and Mitchell Shire in lockdown. Then it was rural councils and Mitchell Shire. And I walked into our local thrift store where I live, and they had a big sign, if you are from Metro Council or Mitchell Shire, please wear a mask. Like, it was something ridiculous. And I thought, wow, this has put us on the map.
Yes, and there were a couple of others a bit like that too. You know, Mornington Peninsula is another one that comes to mind around those times. It also occurs to me, as you're talking about that experience you've had at Whittlesea and Mitchell, that would have been a good grounding for dealing with growth, because of course that's growth on steroids there as well, isn't it?
I was at the same pain point at Whittlesea and watched probably some of the best planners in the state manage and social planners. I include, land use planners and social planners in that mix. And, the likes of a David Turnbull and the Chris De Silvas of the world and the Ruth Spielmans, these will be names that are familiar to you, but they were wonderful teachers for me. And what we always worked and aspired to there was making sure the communities of the future were well planned, developers understood what we were trying to achieve. And I'm trying to bring that now into Mitchell and go, we are at that unique turning point of this show. What we do today matters for 50 years, and we do not want to be retrofitting. And there's this great quote from David Turnbull, who, we all know has passed away. Yeah. But he always said to me, Mary, 30 years from now is in planning terms today. And I've always kept that in my mind, and how we operate at Mitchell. So it's been quite an effective learning experience at Whittlesea.
Yeah. So the same as all other councils, financial sustainability is an issue. You've just been through your budget process. What were the big challenges, or I guess the push-pull decisions that you and your council had to make this year?
Yeah, this has been a really interesting year, because you've got the legacy of the old council and some of the stuff you're still delivering for them. And then you've got a brand new council plan that, will mean different challenges for the next cycle. Yeah. So you're straddling right in the middle of that. I think one of the biggest challenges is and the budget is a challenge. I'm not saying it isn't. But when we sat with the deliberative engagement panel in our community, and where they identified that our assets needed to be for them as community members, and our asset renewal program, and the divide between that gap, and the councillors really understanding that and going, oh, wow, we've got a huge challenge ahead in terms of asset renewal. So that's one huge challenge. The other one for me is deficits, and our councillors really trying to understand the federal assistance grants coming in the last financial year, not the financial year you've budgeted for, which creates a deficit, and trying to explain that. And I think our councillors have made a really great point with me, and I think a lot of councillors across the state, are saying very similar things. We want to understand the whole picture, the big picture, the strategic picture, so we can make really informed decisions. So that's my next challenge. But it's that tension, Chris, between delivering in the new areas, the renewal gap, and a limited council cash pool.
Yes.
So
I was having a
tension.
look through some of the most recent statements that have come out of your media team, and one that jumped out at me, and it's not a unique problem again to Mitchell, is the issue with illegal dumping, but fringe sort of areas seem to experience this, it seems, a lot more. You're running this Dob in a Dumper campaign. How's that going?
You know, the community's fantastic. Like they will text in number plates and they'll tell you where things are. And we caught a dumper who was driving their garbage from 3 doors down to another. So if you have a look at one of our videos, we've got them on someone's camera. So the community dobbed them in.
Yep.
We got it off footage that wasn't our own. And they drove 3 doors up, dumped the rubbish, and in 3 minutes came back with another load. So
Goodness.
I think, don't quote me, their fine was like $3,000 odd.
Goodness me.
So we will punish, but sometimes and identify it's very difficult. So our local laws team also will go out on site, check through all the garbage to see if there's any identifiers, and then, you know, we will prosecute. So
and is it not true that a big part of the problem, and I think it was Macedon Rangers or Hepburn recently said something similar, that it's contractors, people coming from outside of your shire. They might be coming in for work, but they're dumping rubbish before they leave, and it's just not on to do that to a community that's not yours, let alone the example you've given of someone doing it within their own community.
3 doors up, but what we're getting is, and we had a very interesting experience. So we're getting house lots. Right. So a whole house on a big truck just dumped. But one day, one of those trucks got bogged. Well, Dob in the dumper. There were cameras, there were people taking photos going. It's great to catch them. And the EPA, it plays a key role in prosecuting some of these larger offenders.
I was thinking, Mary, and I do too much of this at times, because I love the catchy title, The Dob in a Dumper. Once upon a time, you'd have been criticised for being un-Australian, wouldn't you, to do that?
Yes. But community hate rubbish. And one of our key pillars in our council plan is civic pride, because that's come out of the community vision. No one wants to live where there's garbage everywhere, and our community does not want that. So they're right behind it.
Yeah, good. Excellent. You were telling me you've got a great mayor this year and a former military man who understands hierarchy and how organisations work. That must be great for you as a new CEO to have someone of that understanding.
Yes. Look, he's great. You know, we can have really robust conversations, and he understands the division of roles, which is really great, because, you know, new councillors come in, it's learning. You're constantly teaching and they're learning, but he gets it. He gets it from the word go. So it's been a real joy to work with him and work through the council plan. He's taken such an active role. Council plans in the past, for me, sometimes councils are really embracing the opportunity or not. Yeah. He's really embraced that opportunity, and what we're doing is really cascading that through the organisation and working through that at the moment with a robust reporting mechanism as well.
Very good. That's Mayor John Dougal, of course. Mary, when you get to the end of your time as CEO at Mitchell, whenever that might be, what would you like to be able to look back on as, I guess, a lasting contribution that you would have made?
Okay. It's what drives you as a person and what drove me to want to be the CEO of Mitchell Shire. I want, in 30 years, I don't want to be retrofitting this Shire. I want the Shire to have the foundations for good, and that means health, transport, connectivity, and I'm very proud to say I've had every interchange onto that Hume Freeway now funded. Wow. Hasn't been delivered, well done. But it's been funded.
Big step.
Yeah. I want great landscaping, people to feel good about where they live. I want a mix of housing so you can age in place. I want children to thrive. So when you look at the outcomes for children. They go, what's Mitchell Shire doing? And also I'm building the sporting capital of Victoria.
Right.
So I'm trying to extract out of Metro Melbourne big sporting names. We've got a heads of agreement now with Melbourne Victory, and they will be in beverage. And why that was important to me, and we were very blunt with Melbourne Victory, was we want aspiration in these communities. I want one job per household eventually. We're not there yet.
Yeah, that's big stuff. Yeah,
big stuff. So that's, if I can leave either the foundations or getting these cemented in there, I will feel really good. And I want a workforce that is, I know we all benchmark, and I want us to be exemplar in how we deliver as well, and that ethos to be absolutely bedded in that organisation. They're the things that, if I can do a little bit of that,
excellent.
I will be very pleased.
Just a note to the viewer and the listener, I did not prepare Mary for that question. You didn't know it was coming.
No. And I said to Chris, I free flow easily. So thank you, Chris, for asking that question, because it's, for me, what drives me.
Excellent. Great to hear. Great to chat with you. All the very best in your time at Mitchell. I'm sure you're going to kick some wonderful goals, and I look forward to hearing about them. Thanks for coming on VLGA Connect.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you. Mary Agostino, CEO of Mitchell Shire Council.
And that's it for this week's VLGA Connect. I hope you have enjoyed the program. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or your favourite podcast player. Also, just a reminder that councils have until December 31st for their councillors to complete the mandatory professional development training introduced by the Victorian Government last year. The VLGA is the only peak body offering a complete program of modules that align directly with the mandatory requirements. Our highly experienced faculty of facilitators will work with you to customise a program that responds to the unique needs of your councillor group and delivered in a way that suits you best. If you partner with 3 other councils, you can actually save up to 50% off the cost of completing all 13 modules. Contact one of our VLGA team to find out more. We look forward to being back again with you next week for another episode of VLGA Connect. In the meantime, have a great week and bye for now.